Well, it is cold and flu season again. If you're anything like me, you want to do something for the people in your life that get sick this time of year. So I'm going to give you my foolproof chicken noodle soup recipe. And we're using that term very lightly here because it's just putting the right ingredients in the pot and letting the pot work its magic. This isn't complicated, this isn't hard, and it is one of the best things you can do to provide a little comfort and warmth and nutrition to the people in your life who maybe aren't feeling so great. Hi, this is Anne from Nan Loves Food, and today we're gonna talk about all things chicken noodle soup. So my from scratch chicken noodle soup recipe takes about 6 hours. And before you go, whoa, wait. So I'll show you the whole process if you wanna do the whole thing, but I'll also show you how I cheat when life happens, whether I'm the one who's sick or I just don't have time to prepare this in its full glory. Here's what I do to kind of shortcut the process. So when I am making my chicken stock, I always make too much. And I'll be making the chicken stock from scratch today, so I can show you how to do that. Is the magic sauce. This is so good. And when you make homemade bone broth like this, it has so much nutrition and it's so delicious. And also you can absolutely make chicken soup without this. So if you don't have it in your freezer, you haven't had time to stock up, you went through whatever, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the stuff in a box, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with the better than bouillon. I also, when I'm making the whole thing homemade from scratch, hand chop all of my vegetables. Again, if you don't have 25 minutes, 45 minutes to sit and chop veggies like a crazy person, there are plenty of ways that the store can help you out here. So this is a favorite of mine that is absolutely always in my freezer. This is made by the Kroger brand stores. It is a Maripoth blend. So what that is, it is a celery, carrots, and onion that I would have chopped up, and this is frozen. And so I can always have this in my freezer. It's always on hand. So if I need to whip up a quick batch of soup, no big deal. So if I'm working completely out of my freezer, I'm gonna grab out a jar of homemade stock. I'm gonna grab out one of these, or I will also say you can buy the fresh. I've seen like the deli containers of fresh cut veggies like this in my Walmart and also my Trader Joe's. The ones at Walmart, at least at my Walmart, kind of look a little sketchy. I'd probably go to Trader Joe's if I wanted to make sure that I had fresh veggies on hand. But because we're cooking them, frozen's fine, totally fine. So, chicken stock, veggies. I would grab a package of chicken breasts out of the freezer, which again is another thing I always have on hand. And finally, these Reams noodles. These are the absolute best. Unfortunately, if you have a gluten, wheat, or egg sensitivity, these are not on the menu for you. But these are so darn good. They are in fact a home style noodle. So this to me tastes like what a grandma would make. And again, these are also in the freezer. So this is not sponsored. I just have been eating this brand since I was a kid and I love them. So honestly, you can go from start to finish with stuff that you already just have stocked in your freezer and have chicken noodle soup from scratch in probably a half an hour, not including like thaw time. So feel free to use those shortcuts for a quick and easy chicken noodle soup, but I will add one more word of caution. I delivered a lot of soup last year just to family and friends who were under the weather. And I made the mistake of using a Rubbermaid Tupperware container that the lid was apparently not completely securely on as I was driving to their home. And my car smelled like chicken noodle soup for about 3 months. And chicken, the smell after a month or two, and I cleaned it, don't think, I cleaned this car and it still had that chicken odor for a while. So if you do not want to be cleaning chicken off of your floorboards like I had the pleasure of doing, here is my great trick. I have recently discovered these wonderful 64-ounce mason jars. I bought them in a 6-pack for like 12 bucks. So I am good to go for the season with these. And if somebody doesn't return it, it's not a big deal. You know, it was basically $2. This is a wide mouth canning jar. You know, you can use it for canning, but that lid will stay on there securely and it will allow me to transport this soup safely to whomever it's going to without spilling all over your car. So please, 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 soup is sloshy, y'all. It just kind of goes places. So if you are traveling with your soup, make sure it is very, very, very well secured in a container with a very tight lid. Don't be like me. All right, let's get into making chicken noodle soup from scratch. I also want to say that there is not a recipe for this. We're basically gonna throw equal parts of our onion, celery, and carrots into a pot with some chicken and cook it. I know there are a lot of recipes online, I'm sure you can find one, but let's not overcomplicate this, okay? So carrots, if all of the things that are in this soup are gonna taste good together. The proportions can be completely dependent on A, what you have in your pantry, B, what your family likes. If you've got a kid who doesn't like onion, maybe put a little less onion in it or no onion at all. This is a completely flexible recipe, and as long as you get like the foundation built, we're fine. So a lot of recipes I feel like try and overcomplicate things, and it drives me crazy. Like what is a medium carrot? I don't wanna have to do any math here. This is just soup. So throw some stuff in a pot. I promise it will turn out delicious. You'll love it. Let's go make it. The first thing we're gonna do is get our produce nice and clean. We are gonna use the carrot skins, so we want those to be clean as well. Celery is dirty. Clean it, please. We're not gonna use all of this celery, but I want to be able to use these middle parts in my stock. So we're gonna prep and clean all of it today. One of the things that drives me crazy on the internet is seeing people mishandle produce, and not that I care about what they do to their produce, but I just don't want them to cut themselves. So I'm gonna show you how not to cut yourselves when cutting carrots. Highly recommend getting one of these Y peelers. They just make this work super easy. And there's no reason to risk your fingers by holding anything up here. Just lay your carrot on the board and go like this. All of these ribbons we're gonna use in the soup stock, so nothing goes to waste in this soup, which is one of the reasons I absolutely love making it. And then to chop a carrot, we're just gonna chop the two ends off. And the most important thing when you're cutting anything, really, it doesn't matter how sharp your knife is, doesn't matter whatever, is getting yourself a flat surface. This rolls, which makes it precarious to cut. So we're just gonna go ahead and cut this in half, and we're gonna give ourselves a stable surface to cut on. These aren't going anywhere, and they just make chopping into little bite-sized bits so easy. So with this one, I'm probably just gonna cut it in half. With the larger ones, I'll cut into thirds or maybe fourths, and then you just go. Celery, same kind of deal. Cut off these ends that look a little funny. Those are gonna go right in our stock pot. I swear this is clean. This is just a little bruised. So those will go in the stock pot. And then again, we're just looking for flat cutting surfaces. Since this is a pretty small stalk of celery, I'm just gonna cut it into 2 pieces here. But when I cut it in half, then I can put it on my cutting board and it's stable. And so I can run through this real quick, no problem at all. With the onion skins actually do magical things to broth. So you wanna save all of those. That's all delicious flavor and color that will make your broth taste even better. So again, same as the other veggies, we are going to create a flat surface. So when we cut an onion in half, we have a flat surface. We're gonna save all this skin. And I always recommend keeping the fuzzy bottom on the onion, taking off the top. Again, this will go in our soup base. And we're just gonna take the knife and slice like a couple times here, and then we'll slice it here. So I'm gonna show you like this. Do not do this. Put this on your board flat. But so I'm just gonna cut it a couple of times like that. And like I say, normally I would do it sitting on my board flat with my fingers well out of the way. We're gonna chop a couple of times here and then just run right through. And then you get these absolutely perfect dices that look like a real chef did it. Go figure. All right, so we have all of the veggies chopped and ready to go here. We're just gonna set these to the side because we don't need them for quite some time actually. If you want, you can put them in the refrigerator and put some saran wrap or something on top, but you know, I'm just gonna leave them out on the counter, it'll be fine. This is my giant slow cooker that also has a saute function on it. I'm going to do a video coming up about buying a slow cooker and what you should be looking for when you buy one. So make sure you're subscribed if you're not already so that you can catch that video. I definitely have some thoughts about the right way to go. And this saute feature has a lot to do with it. So I'm gonna use my OXO oil puller here. I love this thing. And just throw a tiny bit of oil in the bottom of my pan. Obviously you can do this on the stove, but because I want it to cook most of the day, I like doing it in my slow cooker instead, just so I don't have to have the gas on all day. All right, so I have 2 bone-in, skin-on chicken breasts. They're just like the split chicken breasts, and they're ginormous. And there are a couple of reasons that I like using these. So you can certainly use a whole chicken, but that is kind of a pain to get all the meat off of. I really don't enjoy that task of picking chicken meat. So this kind of skips a step that way because it's just really easy to get the chicken breast off the bone here, but we still have all the benefits of the bone being in there, which will make a really good, rich stock, like that bone broth situation that's got all those nutrients in there. And then the skin adds a little fat, which fat is flavor, it tastes good. So now that those are good and seared, we just have the scraps from all of the chopping we did earlier. I did liberally season the chicken with salt, so there's plenty of salt in there now. I'm also gonna use some peppercorns, like whole peppercorns. The reason I use these is they're very easy to fish out, but they still give the soup that flavor of kind of freshly cracked pepper, even though we're not cracking it. Maybe like a tablespoon of those. We're also gonna do a couple, 2-3 bay leaves in there. This is a great use for the broken ones, if you've got a bunch of broken ones at the bottom of the container, because we're gonna strain this broth completely, so you don't need to worry about having them be whole in this circumstance. And plenty of kosher salt if you don't have enough already. So from here, we're just gonna add a bunch of water and let this hang out. We're gonna put the slow cooker on high for about 5 hours and come back and see how she's doing. It has been about 5 hours since we put everything in here. As you can see, what we have now is very different than what we started with. We're really starting to get some rich color on this broth. It's turning this lovely, lovely yellow color. So I'm just gonna take out these chicken breasts, let them cool for a few minutes, and get the meat off and put the bones and skin back in the pot so we can keep cooking and making this really rich bone broth. So I got the chicken off the bone and I'm just gonna throw the bones back into the soup. And honestly, this is gonna hang out until I'm ready to mess with it. This could be done, or this could go for another 4 hours. It really doesn't matter at this point. The only thing you wanna be conscious of is when you're cooking the chicken, you don't wanna overcook the chicken breast. All right, so this is all finished up cooking, and that color on that stock is amazing. So what I'm gonna do next is take my spider here and just get out all the big bits. Let it drain really well and get all that stuff out. Since I don't need all of this stock today, I'm going to put some into some mason jars that'll go into my freezer. I'm using this awesome silicone funnel, like the funnel part is actually silicone, to fill some mason jars, and I will just let those cool and put them in the freezer, and then I'll have those on hand for next time. Now you may notice that there is some fat kind of raising to the top of the jar. That is perfectly fine by me. That is just flavor that will go into my next soup. If you don't want that there, that's fine too. Just wait until this cools and it will rise to the top and you can skim it off if you don't want it. We've given this slow cooker a quick rinse. We're not cleaning it all the way out because, you know, we're still cooking. So I'm gonna take all of my delicious vegetables and get these browned up a bit. So we're just giving these veggies a quick little saute. That's supposed to give them extra flavor. And yeah, I'm using my ladle because I'm not dirty in another dish, are you kidding? So the real secret that makes this chicken and noodle soup better than any other chicken and noodle soup are these home-style egg noodles. These are sold at my Walmart. They're in the freezer section. And darn, they are so good. They do contain egg and wheat, so if you have sensitivities or allergies to those things, obviously don't use these, but these are the best. So now that these have a good little saute on them, we are going to dump back in. I'm not gonna put the chicken back in just yet because I don't want it to overcook, and because we use chicken breasts instead of thighs, that is a very real risk. And these noodles need to cook for 20 minutes. So that is what these noodles look like frozen. We'll just stir those in, and this needs to cook for 20 minutes. These just need to simmer for 20 minutes. So I'm just gonna put the slow cooker on high and call that good. All right, so here is the soup after the noodles have been cooking for about 20 minutes. They're looking pretty good. Again, this is more than likely gonna be reheated by the person who's receiving it. So I don't wanna cook anything too much, but I do want everything to be cooked, you know? So what I had done with the chicken is when I pulled it off the bones, I just shredded it and put it in one of these handy deli containers. So we're just gonna dump that in. I did wanna mention that I have been seasoning this all along the way. So when I sauteed the veggies, I put some salt in. When I put the noodles in, I put some salt in. When I strained the broth out, I put some salt in. There is a reason that Campbell's soup has 100 million milligrams of sodium. Sodium tastes good, and you really need more than you think in soup. So my best advice is to just taste it as you go and make sure that you've got enough so that it tastes good. You'll notice that cooking the noodles has made the broth starchier, which I really appreciate and enjoy. It's not a very thick, it is still a runny broth, but it's definitely been thickened by the starch from those noodles, and I think that's wonderful. So I'm gonna give it one last taste test for salt. That is right where it needs to be. Darn, that is good. Tastes like fall and a warm hug all together. So good. So now we are going to use this handy dandy funnel again to fill up our mason jar with this soup. So as you can see, we made a ton of soup, which I love. It will freeze well if I need to, and you better believe that I'm gifting this to someone and my husband is eating this for dinner. 2 birds with 1 stone, as many times as we can do that, right? And there you have it. A beautiful, giant jar of soup to take to someone who is not feeling well. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you would, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.